The first feature of Node that we're going to focus on is how to get code to share between multiple different files. So as we just mentioned a video or two ago, when we usually run code inside the browser, we can have multiple different JavaScript files. All the different variables, objects, functions, or whatever else that we define inside these separate files are essentially shared, and we can make reference to them directly between these different files. Of course, all the usual scope rules apply. So for example, if I declare a variable inside of myscript.js and wrap it inside of a function, that is in a different or more contained scope, and so it would not be accessible from index.js. But let's just imagine the simplest case. Let's imagine that in the browser, we've got an HTML file that loads up myscript.js and index.js. If myscript.js defines a variable called message and assigns it a value, I can freely access that variable from inside of index.js. The only requirement is that I define index.js inside of a script tag after my script. That's pretty much it. Now in Node, it is a very different situation. Let's try creating these two separate files in Node. We're going to try writing out some code like you see right here. We're going to very quickly see an error, and we'll figure out how we can fix it. So I'm going to go back over to my code editor. I'm going to create a new file inside of here called myscript.js. Inside of here, I'll do a variable declaration, like so. Then I'll go back over to the index.js file. And back inside of index.js, rather than console logging out that string directly, I'm going to instead try to console log the message variable that we just declared inside of my script. So I'll save this. I'll make sure both files are saved. I'll then go back over to my terminal, and I'll run node index.js. And sure enough, I get a really big error here. Let me scroll out just so I can see the error very easily. So it says that message is not defined. So, like we just said, when we are running code with Node, there's no automatic sharing of variables, functions, objects between different files. Instead, if we want to share stuff between different files, we have to use something called the module system. So the module system is how we do code sharing between different files with Node. There's a little bit of kind of arcane syntax here that's going to be kind of hard to remember when you first start, but let's just go over a quick example, and then I'll show you a couple diagrams to really help you understand exactly what is going on behind the scenes. So let's imagine that we've got a myscript.js file. If we want to make something or some like variable or object or function that is defined inside of here available inside of another file, we're going to take that variable or that value or whatever it is, and we're going to assign it to a very special variable called module.exports. When we assign a value to module.exports, that makes that value available inside of other files inside of our project. So inside of another file, we can write out something called a require statement. The require statement, we're going to provide a path to the file that we want to get some code from. So in this case, we would say require some code from myscript.js. That will tell Node to essentially reach out to myscript.js, find whatever was assigned to module.exports, and that is going to be the result of the entire require statement. So essentially, we are taking that string of hi and assigning it to the variable of message. Let's try implementing this inside of our code editor, and you'll see it in action very quickly. I want to repeat once again that I'm going to show you a more complete diagram to really help you internalize what's going on here, but for right now, let's just do a quick experiment. All right, so I'll flip back over. Inside of myscript.js, I'm going to assign the variable that I want to make available to other files inside of my project. So I'll do module.exports, and I'm going to assign message to it. So now whatever message is referencing, in this case a string, is available to other files. So now I can go back over to index.js. At the top, I can write out a require statement. So I'll say const message is require, and then I'm going to write out a relative path to the file that I want to require some code from. A relative path would be ./myscript.js. The / on here means in the current directory or in the same directory. So in other words, we're saying, okay, we're currently inside the index.js file. In the same directory, find a file called myscript.js. Whatever inside of that file is assigned to module.exports, we want to have returned by this require statement. So we're going to get back the string of hi there, and assign it to this variable of message, and then we console log it out. So I'll save both files, flip back over to my terminal, I'll run node index.js once again, and sure enough, we don't get an error anymore. Okay, so that's definitely a very simple, practical example, but it would be really nice to have a better idea of what's going on behind the scenes. So let's take a quick pause right here. When we come back in the next video, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how this require stuff and this module.export stuff is really working.